We will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming this morning. You're at the K-12 Related Arts TIC. We have several presenters, and there's a few people that are on Zoom as well. Just a few housekeeping. If you need to get on the internet, the password is education, and there's a sign on the wall over there. Bathrooms are right outside this door, and you can see them right out there. And there's also, right where you walked in from the parking lot, there's the vending machines if you need them. And if you have any other questions, you can contact, or you can get a hold of me, Kathy, or Jeff right there, are all instructional tech consultants for Heartland. Our first presenter is from Ankeny, and she teaches elementary art.
Yes.
Correct?
I am currently an elementary art teacher. I was secondary.
Okay. And this is Johanna Russell. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, good morning. Okay, so I am a 5th grade down to kindergarten art teacher. However, what I'm sharing with you today, I also used with my secondary students. They were 8th and 9th graders. And then I happen to teach classes here for Heartland, so I know that other content areas have used these techniques in their classroom. And then if I have art people here, I also work for the Art of Education, which provides online resources for art teachers. So with that, I want to make sure that I'm providing a presentation that addresses who's in the room. So I'm going to ask that you take a pre-assessment for me just so I can gauge kind of my audience. If you have a QR code scanner, so you can either scan this code here, or if you have, I'll get out of the way, if you have access to the information about our presentations, you can actually link into my presentation and then you can get into the pre-assessment. Or if you're very motivated, you can actually type out this right here. And feel free to get closer if you need to. And I do have a couple of videos to show you while you're doing this. So I'll give you kind of a minute to be able to access things before I play the videos. And if you're needing help, feel free to raise a hand and let me know that you're not able to get in. You might have to get it to go to actual presentation mode to get the link to work.
Or mine's blocking the link.
Oh, that would be a sad deal. Well, that's okay. We can do it the old school way. So is anyone able to get in? Otherwise, we're just going to go old school. You typed it in and is able to work? Well, let's just kind of do old school readout. So how many people are art teachers? Okay. And then what grades do you guys teach?
I am a high school art teacher.
High school? Okay. And then do I have PE teachers? Excellent. Do I have music teachers? Okay. Do I have technology coaches, leaders, guiders, facilitators, helpers, problem solvers? Okay. And then do I have anyone that I didn't address specifically? The problem is that the skills students of today need. I mean, the student we were just talking to, she's going to enter the workforce in probably 15 years. I have no clue what she needs to know, understand, and be able to do. And at the same point, I do know she's going to need to know how to creatively problem solve. However, how do I teach her creative problem solving when I don't know the skills she's going to need to creatively problem solve? And so that causes this issue of learning new skills is time consuming, extremely time consuming. And so how do we create time to learn the new skill, but then spend the majority of our time on the application of that skill? When I think about music, our music teacher struggles with how do I get students to actually create music when it takes so long to just be able to learn, understand, and make music somebody else has already created. Same is true when I think and work with people in PE, is the concept of teamwork and working with a team is important. How do I get kids the opportunity to learn how to create, manage, and guide team problem solving when just learning how to dribble a ball is very time consuming for young students? So this is my solution that I've applied now at the elementary level and at the secondary level. And that is to transform the learning of skills into boot camps. And I stole this term and this concept from several different people that work at the Art of Education. And then I've kind of switched around how I apply it. So it is something that you can use in multiple media areas. Okay, so what is skill learning in a boot camp? So first off, the creative application use of the skill is explained before the boot camp is learned. So we're here to learn about how to create functioning teams. We're here to learn about how to create music. We're here to learn, in my case, how to create a wow project, a wonderful original work of art. Before we can do that learning, we are going to learn skills in complete isolation of that problem. And that is challenging because that is different from how we were taught to teach students. We were taught to teach students skill application during the execution of the main learning target, and this is separating the two. Skills are broken into I can statements, and I put them into student-friendly language, and I communicate them through student-friendly language, and I make the learning objective extremely clear. This means that I'm not including any nice-to-know information. I'm only including essential information that they would need in order to execute the creative application. So here's an example. My students have a front and back sheet. It's actually designed K-5. At the 8th and 9th grade level, it was specific to the course. So I would have one for drawing, I had one for 8th grade art, I had one for digital photography, right? And because I happen to teach in a classroom where I need to teach several media, I happen to have these broken down by the media. So I have 7 different centers. I have the skill, I have the media specifics that they get to use at that skill, and then I have how they can level up. So I treat this like a video game. I do that because young students are naturally motivated, or students who are interested in the subject matter are naturally motivated. Those who are not, you have to sell them on something. And video games, when you introduce the concept of leveling up, they're in. Right? The concept and they get it. It's a rule of a game that they understand. I can't use Sharpies because I haven't leveled up to get to use Sharpies. If I want to use Sharpies, I have to level up. If I want to use the drums, I have to level up, right? Kids accept game rules. They don't challenge that they have to go to jail when they land on jail. They might be angry, right, that they rolled doubles for the 3rd time and now they're going to jail, but they don't challenge the rule of the game. And so that then incorporates, for me, I use flipped instruction. So I have videos that teach students the specific skills that I want to know. I'm going to just kind of gauge the room. Would you like to see, we're just going to do show of hands, would you like to see what one of those looks like, even though this is very content specific to art? So if you are a yes, I want to see what the students are actually experiencing, okay, I'm going for it. So those students that you just saw in that video all have succeeded at our level C learners, right? They have, level A is, I gave you some clay, you didn't eat it, you took care, you laugh, but they're curious. They know how to care for the art supply, they know how to get it out, and they know how to pick it up as level A. Level B is that I can also start to incorporate small tools. Level C is I can successfully slip and score clay together and have it not fall apart. So every student that was at the clay center that was making their WOW project, they had to show that they could do this skill independently.
Hello, art students. Miss Rush here to show you how to do level C at the Sculpture Center. This means we are learning how to slip and score. Let's read our I can statements to see what we need to learn. So it says, I can use the right amount of slip. I can score
So they
the
have
clay
this
correctly.
in front of them as a
I
document.
can get 3 pieces of clay to stick together. I can test my pieces by slightly pulling on them and they stick together. Woo! Let's see how to make that happen. So, first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to get, ta-da, my clay bag. Now it's stored on the open part, so you have to turn it over, open your clay bag. We never want air in our clay bag. We then are going to take, ta-da, our wire cutter, and we are going to take our wire cutter and we are going to pull off a small amount of clay. I just pulled that through there. Now, important note, fun fact, is that the art supplies get a little bit more challenging at the C level, and so it's important that we always use the art supplies correctly. If something were to happen to the art supply, if you were using it and all of a sudden it broke or got damaged, a responsible leader would of course immediately go tell their teacher, because accidents happen in the art room, and we would never ever misuse an art supply, because then, well, then we're not really a level C learner. Okay, we are then going to take our clay and we are going to roll it.
So
and
this
wedge
is
it
nice
into a
to know
tube like we're
information.
making
I'm
bread.
not
So I'm
specifically
pushing
teaching
down,
wedging.
I'm squeezing and rolling. Pushing down.
However, this gets
squeezing
into
and
level
rolling.
D.
Ooh, let's see that upside
So
down.
it's
So I
kind of
push
starting.
down, and then I squeeze and I roll. Okay? Now we will learn what's called wedging later, but this gets us started. Once I have my little tube of bread, I'm going to take one of our clay knives and I'm going to cut it.
So they already know how to
3
use the clay
pieces.
knife. This is review.
Now I have to score. So the clay needs to have a fork. You're going to take your fork and you're not going to do this. This does not work. See, you can barely see. I did anything. You're going to aggressively, with force and purpose, make the clay super rough and change the quality of the clay. Then you're going to do the next one. Super rough. Then you're going to do the next one. Now you can see from a distance that that quality of clay has changed. Now, very important, if I'm going to put this piece together with this piece, great, score and scored. But look, if I want to put this piece onto this piece, this piece here isn't scored, so I have to make sure that I always, it's like I'm making a sandwich and the scoring is the bread. I've got to have bread on both sides. Once I have all my pieces scored, I now need to put in the filling for my sandwich. So I'm going to get the slip bucket. What is slip? Well, slip is just clay and water.
So if you were at a maker
Just
space,
clay
you would want to include
and
any
water.
care of the
And
supply in
we ever
with
needed
this
new
video.
slip, you could take clay and you could take small chunks, or you could take
Including
any of the
how to
scrapings
replenish the
off
supply.
of the
That's
table,
what this
as long
is
as it's
teaching
clay,
now.
and put them in
I don't
there.
make slip,
And
my
then
students
we add just
do.
teeny amounts of water and we get slip. Now, did I put my finger in there to get it out? No, I used the fork. I got a little bit on the fork and I only need to put it on one side. Okay, I then take it. Now listen. Oh, did you hear that? It was a clay fart. We know we've done a good job with slipping
Gotta
and
give
scoring
people what
if we
they want,
hear
right?
a clay fart. Now, if you want to smooth this out, you sure can. I can use the back of the fork, but for this video, I'm just going to keep going. So what do I need to add now? That's right.
So
I
we've
need
got
to
about one
add
more minute, but
slip.
and I'm going to keep going because I want you to see. You also
I
want to
get a little
include
bit
the
more slip
assessment in this
to make
video.
sure my clay
You
has
want
been
students to
scored.
be doing their own
Okay.
self-assessment,
Then
and they're
I'm gonna
only
take
coming
my
to
other
you
piece
once
that
they
is
think they've
scored
met
to
all the
make
I
my
can
sandwich
statements.
and listen for my clay fart. Ooh, that was a good one. And then I could smooth it out. But let's go to testing. Once you have scored 3 pieces of clay together, you are then going to give it a tug. Oh, those are stuck together. If they could come apart, then that is a sign that I didn't use enough slip.
So as you can imagine,
or I
some
didn't
kids were coming
score
to me
my
in the
clay
first
hard
5
enough
minutes.
so that it would stick
Some kids were
together.
coming to me
You're
at
gonna
the very
take
end of
this
the
to your
class.
teacher, and they're gonna test it.
But I don't
to
teach
see
them
if
how
your
to
clay
make
sticks together.
ears. I don't teach them how to make
Happy
a body.
learning,
I
art
don't teach them how to
students, and just
balance
know
the
that
clay.
sometimes you're
This
really good at this, and
is
it goes
what
fast,
the
and
basic
sometimes
I
you
can
have to
skills
try
are.
over
So when
and
you
over
think
again
about your own
before
media,
clay sticks together.
as a teacher,
The
we
reason
think
this
the
is
list is
important
this
because when we put
long.
clay in
You
the
have to
kiln,
really think
if it is
through.
not slipped
I mean,
and
my rule
scored
is
correctly,
C level, 3
all
I
of your
can
pieces
skills,
fall
that's it.
apart. I mean,
B
it would
level,
be terrible
2.
to make a
A
beautiful
level
dragon
also has
and
2.
then have
I
the
had to,
tongue fall off,
oh, I wanted
fall
one,
off,
but it didn't work.
tail fall off,
So
because we didn't know how to slip and score. Happy happy art making. Bye.
At the secondary level, I would love to tell you I'm less silly in the videos, but that's kind of who I am. I now have to be smart about how I get back to my presentation. Oh, that's not that button. Hold on. Oh, yeah, will work. The only thing I don't like about Prezi is I feel like it's not intuitive. I have to relearn every time. Okay, so, and then I don't successfully learn. Okay, so what does this look like depending on the age? So if they're kindergarten through 3rd grade, skills are taught as one-day learning experiences, whole group. We did a whole group day where everyone learned how to use slip. We did a whole group day, everyone, and the video you saw with 2nd graders learned how to paper mache. So every center had a day, and that incorporated 7 days. That's a lot when you only see them, in my case, once a week. The video is shown to the whole class, so I'm sure everyone can see, I'm sure everyone has the information. And then I have their sheets, and when they do something, I check it off. If they only met a couple of the I can statements, I just check that component off. And I know I need to give the kids another exposure, or if they pick that center, that I need to make sure that I'm reteaching whatever didn't get checked off for them. Explain this one. Students are re-exposed to the same skills year after year. So I do have to edit and refine. I would love to teach a million skills, but I have to decide that these are the core ones that I'm going to expose every student to, and anything else is a nice or need to know based on the project that they create. Okay, but I'm gonna skip this one. This is a lower elementary. What does it look like for a kindergartner example? Okay, so, secondary application, where is my, okay, apparently I didn't tell you. I'll just tell you, what do I do for 4th grade through 5th grade? 1 students have Chromebooks. 1 students are used to Google Classroom. 1 students have the concept of independence. And I will tell you, you have to teach that. They are very familiar with YouTube. They are very unfamiliar with how to learn from YouTube. My students that I have now, I would say it took me, the first time they got their Chromebooks, the 4th graders, I would say in December, I was still guiding what it looks like to learn from a YouTube video. The concept of hit pause. What did it say to do? You have a paper. Yes, you should go get that paper. What else do you see? You have yes, you should go get those Sharpies. What did I do in the video? Teaching them to not watch TV is harder than you think. So I will just warn you that you have to spend quite a bit of time teaching them how to learn. Or more importantly, mine doesn't look like the video. I should go ask for help. But my 5th graders now are completely independent. I also run a no-nonsense rule with my computers. I have specific spaces in the art room where they can use a computer. And then it's like a game. You're not in trouble. It's not a punishment. If you take your computer to a center, they know 3 art days, no computer. You're not in trouble. It's bad, we all make mistakes, but it's not a safe place for computers. The other thing is that another rule is if you're using the computer for non-education purposes, you're not in trouble. It's okay. We all make poor choices. We're learning, but no computer in the art room for 3 art days. And I will say that it generally takes one, bless their little heart, that one soldier to go down with the team, and then they all learn that is the rule. It's just like a video game, right? If you go down the chute, that's a sad deal. That's the space you land on. Secondary, you have to reteach that lesson a little bit more, but I will say that it was rare for me after the first month to have issues with students misusing technology in the classroom. Okay, so these are the secondary videos. The first thing would be I actually ran my secondary classroom from day 1 on gamification and self-paced learning. At the secondary level, they can be a lot more independent. So I actually have, and on your own time, you're welcome to, there's a video that explains to students the whole process and how you get access to the different supplies. Students learn a certain number of skills. So my PLC decided essentially this has to be essential learning every student can do. Everything else is bonus. And then the personal interest extension. So this video, for example, is how do you use hot glue to make art. So teaching students how to use the hot glue gun to melt crayons and to go over top of an armature. And this is a level, I don't know, I can't remember. It was like E or something. So let's envision this. You are a 14-year-old boy. You are going to art. You don't want to go to art. You hate art. You have to learn how to use an X-Acto blade successfully, correctly, and safely. You have to then learn how to use a box cutter successfully, correctly. You then have to learn how to use a hot glue gun the normal way to attach pieces together. You then, at a certain point, you take your game and you say, okay, the game's over. We're now applying the learning. So however many skills they learned, that is what they get to use. So if you're a 14-year-old boy and you desperately want to take the hot glue gun and melt crayon stuff all over things, because that sounds fun, rather than slowly move through the pace at a normal learning pace, you naturally speed up, because not only do you have to get to here, which is where everyone's expected to go, but you have to do this one and you have to do this one. 14-year-old boys, they will come in for study hall, they will come in early, they will stay late. If you make the parameters the truth from day one, if you want access to this supply for your WOW project, this is what you have to do. They're in it. They understand games and they will meet that challenge. And then sometimes they don't, and then they're frustrated because their friend did and they didn't. So the next time they get access to the skill learning game, they're like in it to win it, right? So let's see. And then photo documentation. So at the secondary level, obviously grades are a bigger component. So the elementary level, they're just so stinging excited to use all the supplies. Like they use them correctly, just naturally. It's my greatest realization with teaching young students. But secondary students, they have to, I call it the gate. You have to pass through the gate. And there's a certain standard for the application of the learning in order to pass through. So for them, I had in Google Classroom, they had to take pictures and put it into a slideshow, because I learned you don't want to open 30 pictures and then take that times 6 or 7, depending on the number of classes. It's like, no. Instead, it's a slide presentation and you're number 15, and you put your picture on slide number 15, and then I can just go scan down the list and I'm done. I don't even have to look at sketchbooks. So it's a huge time saver for me. So for me, the secondary kids had to make the example, and then they also had to list 5 things that the media can do and 5 things that the media can't do. And this is where you kind of, going back to my stereotypical 14-year-old boy example, they will write stupid stuff here. For lack of a better term, they'll just make it up. And you'll be like, oh, I love your effort. That doesn't get you a pass. Go try again. And they'll and then no reaction. Because when the kid gets mad because the game caused them to lose something, you as the player don't start defending and justifying the game. That's a big secret, right? You're just a player too. Oh, that sucks. I mean, I probably shouldn't have said that. But, like middle school kids kind of have to hear that sometimes. Like, you're on their team. Yeah, that's terrible that doesn't meet the expectation. I know. Do you want help? That's annoying. So sometimes it can be hard as teachers. We want to be like the game leader or something that will blow up in your face. Okay, so then they get to the creative application. How does Bootcamp, when is my time? I feel like I've got 5 minutes left. Is that how much time I'm supposed to have left? Oh, good, I have time for questions. Okay, so how does Bootcamp learning translate into the creative problem solving process? You have to teach the creative solving process separately. So when the students talked about their sketchbooks, I'm like, why do you know what to make? It's because they had to then learn the creative solving process, which is separate from the skill learning. At the elementary school, this is kind of one side. This has gone through several edits for me, But basically, whole group instruction, I give them a theme. Our theme this time was power. We're looking at artwork that incorporates different ways that artists use and talk about power. They then come up with their own idea. They share it. We use tell, ask, and give. Those of you who are art teachers are used to that kind of model for critique. Critique is a huge element of this type of learning. It's how you learn from each other. You have to incorporate things like think about your friend's idea. Like set a timer and have them actually think about what their friend told them. And we talk a lot about how annoying it is when you're talking to someone and they don't listen to you. And so how we have to be purposeful listeners and take time to actually think about what the person told us. And then they come up with their next one. After all of this is when they choose their center. And then secondary, it's more intensive because there's grading involved. So you can't read this specifically here, but basically the steps are, the first one says create a sketch. There's then the assessment element right there. If that doesn't meet when they go to get the assessment, if they don't like where their assessment is, I'll say things like, what can I do to help you get from this level to the next level? Let's go try our sketches again. So it lets them kind of go at their own pace. They then have to tell me what skills they're going to apply. Principles and elements of design are also learned under these boot camp applications for those people who are art people. Those are like the nuts and bolts vocabulary of art speak. So they have to talk about which ones of those they're going to use. They fill out a daily calendar at the secondary level so that they're more concretely planning for their time that they're given. They go through the tell, ask, and give peer process twice rather than once. And then they also each go through it with me. And I'm able to do that in the classroom setting because when they're doing this, they naturally kind of don't all get done at once, right? They go slower and at different paces. And then finally, they're creating their artwork. Okay, so how does the learning build from one experience to the other? So skill learning and application needs to be an ongoing spiral. So, excited, touching. Okay, so for me, this is what it looks like at the elementary. My students are used to a very big star that I move around. So experimentation is when we are learning our skills. We then plan our artwork, create our artwork. We then, when we would want to call our artwork done, is when we go through the feedback loop. And this is very important also for maker spaces, is kids will be like, I'm done. And then you have to be like, that's great. But it says we're on the feedback loop. And so now we have to get feedback. And so that's what that student who came to me, that video I showed you, that was her saying like, I'm done. And that was you hearing me talk to me about your art. What do you like about your art? What was hard for you to create? What do you think the next steps are? So she already said she wants to go back and fix her mouth. Then I'm having to help connect the dots for, so what skill are we going to use to finish our art piece? And then that's when they then go to this reflection where they're finalizing and finishing touches on their art, actually presenting their artwork on display. And then we do it digitally as well, and then they repeat. The kids get really good at this cycle, but I will tell you, if you're opening a maker space or you're trying this for the first time, it's like the third time where you're kind of like, okay, I think they're learning how to invent a game or create music. But from my personal experience, the artwork hasn't started to look like traditional artwork where the teacher, in a general art classroom, the teacher manages all this. I went through the creative process. I figured out how to make it work, and then I just had the kids mimic what I already figured out. Those projects look beautiful because I have an art degree, and I'm really good at figuring out all the little problems they're gonna have and stopping them before they ever start. And if you turn this over to the kids, it does, as an art teacher, take you a little bit of your soul to be like, yep, this is what a 6-year-old creates when a 6-year-old is in charge of the creative process. However, those students who are now 9, because it's their 3rd year with me through this cycle, their artwork as a 9-year-old is much, much higher than, they're more creative than I am. Like I don't know a better way to say it. that mask that girl made, I wouldn't have come up with that project. That's better than the mask I would have created if I had had us all making masks. So that's kind of, it is hard though, because parents see the artwork and then they kind of go like, oh, where's the other art teacher at? So, you know, you kind of have to take that on. It also mimics the engineering process. It's that, I learned this one the long way, it's the same cycle. So a lot of times as art teachers, sometimes we feel like we have to justify what we're doing or anything that's outside the realm. Okay, so with that, there's additional information about specifics with how this looks with technology. And then if you're curious, I've incorporated these videos. I happen to also record the same thing for a kindergarten in a first grade room. And then I incorporated a video of how I just happened to have my first grade class come to me not ready to learn, and how I kind of get them to that. If kids go to a makerspace and they're like, you're gonna have chaos and destruction on your team, right? Like if you have out all the musical instruments and they are like too excited to control themselves. So they just randomly happened to come to me not ready to learn, and so this shows how I kind of settle them into that calm, reflective space that you saw in the first video. Okay, so that is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.